Hey there everybody, welcome back to the 4 String Strummer, the channel. It's all about ukuleles. Today we're going to have a look at some banjo ukuleles, and we're going to look at the Aklot in concert scale and the Camis in a tenor scale. Okay, for those of you that have been visiting my channel for a while, you know that I really like to play banjo ukulele, and in the last couple of years I've been playing this Aklot concert scale instrument. Previous I had a gold tone concert scale instrument that in an impulse I just sold one day and immediately regretted selling it, unfortunately. So once that was gone, it was gone, and I really didn't see myself spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on getting another gold tone. But I really wanted to get back into banjo ukulele. So I thought, you know what, for the price that they're selling these Aklots for, I'd give it a whirl. So I picked this one up, and I did a review on it. I'll put the review link for you up there. And I was pleasantly surprised at what a great little instrument this was. So let's take a look at some of the differences between the Aklot and the Camis, and why I would buy one over the other, or for me, why I ended up buying both. Okay, so first of all, the Aklot brand and the Camis brand are actually related. They're owned, I think, by the same parent company. However, they are very different instruments. They're not just the same instrument with a different label on them, okay? This particular instrument is pretty much made all of maple, so it has a maple neck, it has a maple rim on it as well, and the fretboard on this is basically the top of the neck. There's no fretboard laid on top. So if you're coming from the guitar world, it's very similar to something like you'd see on a Fender Telecaster or whatever. It's just a maple neck, and that's your fretboard. Again, nothing wrong with that. It works really well. It has a bound fretboard. Okay, so down the sides you can see the black strip here, and on that you've got position markers at all of the important points. The position markers that are actually on the fretboard here are black. They show up great. The only little downside that I see with them is that they're just painted on. You can't tell in the video, I'm sure, but it's just basically stenciled on there, which, you know, again, kind of cheesy, especially this black star. It's subjective, right? And it doesn't affect the sound of the instrument or the playability. They are very visible, though, the dark on the light. It works really well for that. You've got I think, a nice looking shape on the headstock. It's kind of a traditional shape, I think. It gives sort of that figure 8 style. You've got open back tuners on this one, which work well. I've never had any problems with them slipping or any grinding or anything like that. They're very consistent in terms of the tension when you're turning them. They work very well. You have a 35 mil nut width, which is pretty standard for an instrument like this. As I mentioned, this one is a concert scale. So this one is a 15-inch scale length from here to here. If you're new to stringed instruments, it's a little bit confusing sometimes if you're looking at them online, because some of them now they're starting to classify them as 23-inch, 21-inch, 26-inch, whatever, and they're measuring the overall length of the instrument, which really doesn't tell you anything, because if you had an extra long headstock on the instrument, what you want to know is what the length is from here to here, because that dictates what the fret spacing is going to be, how much space you have between the frets. Okay, so when you look at this instrument, why would I buy this one? Well, this one is a tenor, which I'm more comfortable with. I play a tenor in my regular ukulele, and it's an extra 2 inches long from the bridge to the nut. So what that translates into for me in usability is between the 1st and the 5th fret, where I spend most of my time, you're going to end up with about an extra ½ an inch, which is considerable, okay? For the rest of the world that's on metric, this is 11 centimeters, and this one's about 9.5. So again, there's a fair amount of extra space to play around in there. If you have bigger hands, maybe you're coming from guitar or from a regular 5-string banjo where the scale length is longer, you might find that to be a little bit more comfortable for you, okay? let's take a look at this one as far as the materials are concerned. So this one being maple, this one is, it has an okume neck. And okume is basically like a sort of a cousin of mahogany, but it's not a cheap wood or anything like that. I've used okume quite a bit in woodworking. I've built boats out of this stuff. It's a really nice wood to work with. It's very strong and it's relatively lightweight. And the back and the sides, or the actual rim here, is built out of sapele, which is also kind of another friend of mahogany. Okay. This instrument, you'll notice, has a plate on the back, and this one is open back. That will affect the sound, and I'll show you what that's like when we do the sound sample. Inside both of these instruments, let me just get this guy back in place here. Inside both of these instruments is a coordinator rod, and that can be adjusted. You have a little wrench that you can turn that, and basically what that does is it changes the angle of the body, the pot itself, to the neck. I never played with it. It was fine. The action was all set up pretty well actually when I got this instrument. This one is the same on the inside once you take the back off. All right, that's just a few little screws there. You can pop that off. It does change the sound, as I mentioned. This kind of makes it a little bit brighter, possibly a little bit louder. This one's a little bit warmer, a little bit mellower sort of a sound to it. Okay, so let's talk again about the Camis. We've got a fretboard that's laminated on top of the okume. I think it's rosewood, but it doesn't say anywhere in their information. It sure looks like rosewood. And it has more traditional style fret markers, fret position markers on it, and those are like a pearloid dots that they've inlaid right in there. I think that looks a lot nicer. You've got an inlaid logo here at the top as well. I'll just pop that up a little closer, you can see it. As opposed to this one, which has a laser etched logo. Again, that's subjective. I'm not a real super fan of laser etching. To me, it kind of looks a little bit on the cheaper side. Whatever, again, that's just me. It doesn't affect the instrument really at all. I just prefer the look of this. This one has closed back tuners on it, as you can see there, and they seem to work really well. Nice and smooth, no issues there. The open back ones, the geared tuners, kind of the look of the gears, to me it looks a little bit more antique and kind of nice. I think this one would look nice with planetary tuners, like the straight ones that pop back out. I think that would look really good, but again, for the price that you're paying here, I have absolutely no qualms about what they've done with it. This has a bound fretboard as well, and position markers in all of the same spots down the side. So both instruments come with a strap button here. There's just one strap button on these instruments, and the reason is that you hook it onto the to the hardware here with a little clip at the other end. Okay, so let's take a look at the kit that it comes with now. So first of all, both instruments come with a little gig bag like this. One says Aklot, one says Camis on it. Essentially they're the same thing. It's got a little zippered pocket here. You can put an extra set of strings, maybe a capo in there if you like, your tuner as well. Pretty basic little bag. It's, you know, it'll work all right. It's got a little handle here and two backpack straps on the back. Both instruments also came with a little tuner, clip-on tuner, and an extra set of strings. And wait for it, the Camis comes with a stick-on pickup. So basically what you do, this just sticks right onto the instrument here like this, and you plug this end in, goes into the PA system, and you can be even louder than a regular banjo ukulele. How's that grab you? Okay, so one of the other differences that you'll see is that this has a little armrest on it, and this instrument doesn't. If I had my choice, I would take that armrest over the pickup, or I'd take it over a tuner. A tuner, I can get a tuning app on my phone for free. I can also buy a tuner for $10 at the local music store. this little armrest you can't buy easily, okay? They don't make a huge difference, but one of the differences that I have noticed is when I'm playing this one, I can feel the top vibrating a little bit on my forearm, which to me says that I'm probably muting the top just ever so slightly. Again, not a big deal. It's certainly not uncomfortable to play. People worry that, you know, the edge is going to dig into their arm. It doesn't. It's basically the same as playing this one. Okay, the other little thing that they send you to help you set the instrument up is this little jig, this little template. And what this is for is to tell you exactly where to put the bridge. So obviously on a tenor scale, you need one that's 17 inches. On the concert scale, you get one that's 15 inches. But this is a great thing. I don't think they've always done this. On the early Aklots, they didn't have this. Now they do. And mine came with one, and so did this. It's excellent. All you do is you just slide this in underneath the strings, and then wherever it ends is exactly where you need to put your bridge. You don't have to measure anything, because you can also measure it to the 12th fret, double that distance, blah, blah, blah. This takes all the guesswork out of it. Once you get your bridge in place, because they do ship them without the bridge in place to avoid the top being damaged, okay? They don't put tension on the strings, and they don't put the bridge in place. They're not being lazy, they're being smart, okay? Because that could easily be damaged in shipping. You put that there, you get your bridge in place, you start to tension up your strings a bit. Once you get it set in place, what I would recommend is just take a pencil and put a little line on each side of the bridge. That way, if you're out and about and this gets knocked somehow, knocked out of position, and you notice it, and you don't have your little jig with you, obviously, you can just reposition it back to where the little pencil lines are. Guess how I figured that out. Okay, so that's pretty much the long and short of that, other than, wait for it, the key piece of kit that we haven't talked about yet, and that's the strap. So the strap, as I mentioned, the instruments both come with a strap button. So you can just put it on there, the strap. This is a well-designed strap that comes with them. It has, you can see it has an extra button here. I'm not sure if you can see that very well. But basically what it allows you to do is you can attach it this way, or if I wanted to, I could take it off of here and I could run this piece of material underneath the strings and wrap it around so that the strap would go from this end, right, over my shoulder and up to the headstock. Some people like that. They find that it's a little bit more centered to their liking up here, rather than having it attach at the neck and going up and around into here. I prefer it this way with it attached at the neck. But the nice thing is with this, you do have the option to do that, okay? That's why that has an extra button on there. On this end, you loop it around like this, as you can see there, and you have a little hook that you could put in there, and it just clips right on to the hardware, just like that, okay? These are actually a pretty comfortable strap. They are hideous to look at, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion. I'm really not a fan of the racer stripe they got going on here, but anyway, doesn't really matter too much. There we go. Okay, let's talk a little bit about quality, quality control. Both of the instruments that I bought, the Aklot and the Camis, weren't perfect when I got them, so I'm just going to say it. Whenever you receive an instrument and it comes with a piece of sandpaper, you're wondering, right? So I knew I was going to probably have to do some kind of fret work with it. Both of them had sharp fret ends, and generally what I do is when I get an instrument, I like to keep it in a room that has controlled humidity, and I leave it in there for a couple of days just to make sure that the instrument isn't dried out from where it's coming from. But both of them, I ended up having to do fret work. This one, pretty much all of the frets were sharp, so I had to use a file to take the edges down a bit. Actually, I'll put a link to how to do that. I did a video on that as well. It's not hard to do, but just so you're aware of it, right? And I did the same thing on the Aklot as well. Just little stuff like that that you have to watch for. Doesn't really affect the sound, but it affects the comfort of the playability, particularly on an instrument like this. And the way that I play, I tend to really get going on it. So if the frets are sharp, it's not just my hand going up and down here, it's my thumb hitting it, or my thumb hitting it here coming back up. It would just tear your fingers apart, right? So that's one thing. The other little thing this is the kind of thing that would just drive me crazy. Whoever put the back on this has got the grain going at an angle, right? And it shouldn't be that way. It should be straight up and down. So these are just little things. It doesn't, again, affect the sound of the instrument, but to me it just looks like hell. So I'm going to have to take that off. I'll just unscrew it, shift it, and put the screws back in place. Okay? But other than that, really, there wasn't a lot of issues with either instrument, and particularly none that it would affect the sound overall. The playability, I would say you are going to have to watch the frets. And that's on, I think, a lot of instruments. I've had instruments that I bought in store that, even though I was buying it in the store, I knew I was going to have to do a little bit of work on the frets when I got it. Shouldn't be that way. But sometimes it is. If you're new to buying or playing instruments, what I would recommend, if you're going to buy online, the advantage is if you're buying from somebody like Amazon, the return policy is so good. You've got 30 days basically to make your decision, and then you can send it back, no questions asked. So there's not a lot of risk involved there. The only thing is that if you don't know what it is that you're looking for, then you may end up with something that's really, subpar. So get a friend to check it out for you if you can, or do some research online. Again, things like fret ends, string buzzes where the fretwork isn't done well and certain strings are buzzing when you're playing it, and it's not because you're not fretting the notes correctly. Those are the kinds of things that you want to keep an eye open for. If you have problems like that and you're not comfortable with correcting them yourself, certainly you can just send it right back to Amazon, and that's the pro of dealing with somebody like that. The con, of course, is that it shouldn't come that way in the first place. But even in a lot of brick and mortar stores, if you're talking about an instrument that's $100, they're not going to do a complete setup on it for you for free. It's just not going to happen. There's just too much involved in that. Okay, so pricing on these instruments. I paid $109, I think it was, Canadian for this one, $122 for this one, Canadian. So that would work out to about $80 and $90, give or take, in American money. So whatever that is in pounds, probably 75 to 85 pounds. Pretty inexpensive for what you get as far as the instruments go, but then also with the complete kit that you get. Pretty good deal overall. Okay, folks, let's have a little listen to what they sound like. Little sound sample here. This is the Aklot, again, concert scale. Here we go. Not bad. Let's try this. All right, let's try the tenor scale now and see how that one matches up. Just check the tuning here. All right, let's try the tenor scale now. Nice. A little brighter, this one, I find. A little louder as well. All right, let's try this. So again, I think part of the difference in the sound is this one's open back and this one has a closed back. So this one tends to be a little bit brighter, possibly a little bit louder. Also, it could have to do with the wood that they use. This one being sapele for the rim, and this one being maple. Okay, folks, so there you go. That lines up all the different pluses and minuses and the differences between the two different models. and the makes. So if you have any questions at all, be sure to drop them down into the comments section. I'm always more than happy to help you out. I think either way you go with these, it's pretty hard to go too far wrong. I've been very pleased with both choices. So until we see you next time, folks, keep smiling, keep strumming, and have fun. Bye for now.